Hi everyone, welcome to Ratanak's 30th anniversary celebration. Thanks to everyone for tuning in from Canada, Cambodia, and other countries around the world. We're so happy to have you join us today. A special welcome to Her Excellency Sanaroon. She's the Secretary of State for Women's Affairs in Cambodia. It's an honor to have you join us today. My name is Melissa. I've been working with Ratanak International for over 10 years now, and it's my pleasure to be your host tonight. I know we need to stay physically distant because of what's happening with the pandemic, but our hope today is that we can still be socially connected, and we're going to do our best to keep space here on the stage, and you'll see that we'll have two people on at a time, and so people will switch in and out. Today, we've got a great program for you over the next hour. We've got Brian, our founding director, who's going to be joining us. We've got Graham, our executive director, and we have a special guest calling in all the way from Cambodia, Pise, who is our client services manager, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all of those interviews. Our hope for tonight is that you will walk away from this hour feeling encouraged and inspired by what God has done in and through Ratanak over the last 30 years, and that you will realize the impact that your partnership has had in transforming lives in Cambodia. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Well, when we talk about celebrating 30 years of Ratanak International, there's no one better to share memories than Brian McConaughey. Hi, Brian. So, can you help all of our viewers understand a little bit more about how Ratanak got started 30 years ago? And what is the significance of May the 2nd?
I've got about 30 years of memories, so I'm going to go really fast for all of you. So I'm just going to do a quick thumbnail sketch of the early days that many of you aren't aware of when this started, when I had no clue what I was doing. And it actually started in this place in Thailand, not in Cambodia. This was Site 8, refugee camp on the Cambodian border, and I was later to go to Kawedan on Site 2, and this was where I experienced Cambodians for the first time. They had escaped from Cambodia and were in the border refugee camps in Thailand, and I ended up there on a vacation by accident, and it was a whole new world for me that I had never experienced before. And I spent some time in a little bamboo hospital where they were taking people from over the mountains. Right behind the mountains in the back of that picture is Cambodia, right over the other side of that. And they were escaping out trying to get medical care because the civil war was still raging in Cambodia and they had no medical care. And I'm from the West. I had no experience of this kind of thing, and there was one area I went into. It was a particular hut that got my attention. It was this one. And this is where they were hanging all the plaster casts of the stumps of legs that they were making new, homemade with wood and with rubber and whatever, and car tires and bits and pieces. They were all cobbling together, and they were making prosthetic limbs. I had never seen anything like this before in terms of the mayhem landmines were causing in the Civil War. And that whole environment changed me. It really broke my heart. And so I came back from that holiday that had actually gone, a totally different direction than I ever expected it to go. And I came back, and about a week after I was home, there was a TV show, and it was by a guy called John Pilger, a documentary, and he had been filming inside Cambodia. At that time, you couldn't get into Cambodia. There was no embassies. It was sealed off from the world. And he filmed this little girl named Ratanak, and this was a few minutes before she died. And there was something about this kid watching that video. She just had this charisma. She was fighting for her life, and she would lose that battle. So I never actually met Ratanak. Most people think I did, but I didn't meet her. Even though I didn't meet her, she completely changed my life. And so I figured I'm going to try and smuggle some medication into that country because nobody else was doing it. Everybody kind of just sealed Cambodia off and forgot about it. And so I figure if I can get some medication into Cambodia to save lives, then I'm going to do it in her memory. So I called it Ratanak Project. And it was supposed to be a project that would last a couple of months. 30 years later, here we are. God knows what he's doing. So after that, for the first time, I flew into Phnom Penh, into Cambodia proper. It was hard to get in at that stage. You couldn't get visas easily. There were no, as I mentioned, no embassies. The UN hadn't even arrived yet at the end of the war. And I was exposed to a city that's very unlike Phnom Penh now. which is developing and thriving in so many ways. These were all sort of decrepit, broken down buildings that had not been maintained since before the revolution. This was 1990. And my arrival was May 2nd, so that's the May 2nd date.
Okay.
That's when we count Ratanak starting. There's several dates you can choose, but it really was chosen just because that's when I first set foot in what for me really felt like holy ground, this special city that had been abandoned and tormented by other countries and in terms of its own internal revolution, and the people had suffered so much, and I figured, no, it's a very special place for me, and I knew that as soon as I hit the ground. And so this was the city I arrived in, and it had a huge impact on me. I had never been in a city that still had that sense of being besieged. They were fearful that the Khmer Rouge were coming back. In 1990, the Vietnamese troops had withdrawn and left Cambodia to fend for itself, and everybody figured the Khmer Rouge were going to come back, and they were going to start the killing fields again. So there was a lot of fear in the city, and inside the city, they were organizing these convoys where they would venture outside the city limits with medical supplies, trying to get medical supplies to rural areas, and it was dangerous. And so you kind of had this safety cocoon in the capital, and the rest could be pretty dicey. And so this was a new experience for me. While that's going on in the capital, outside things are really, really tragic in terms of the doctors had all been executed in the revolution. They hadn't been replaced, the public health workers, everything. So I did have a chance to go to Siem Reap. It's a northern city. And I went up to Siem Reap and visited some clinics. And this was one of the clinics we visited. It's hard to believe, but this is what they had. This is a society that used to have doctors and hospitals. All of that was destroyed in the revolution, and they were left with this up in Siem Reap. And inside there was a bench. There was an old ammunition box with a couple of bottles, like scummy, moldy looking bottles of something that may have been medicine, and that was it. And so people weren't even going to the clinics because the medical services had been shattered. And so that encouraged me all the more. I'm gonna smuggle medication into Cambodia. So we ended up putting a container together, getting that into Cambodia, and I was welcomed by the Cambodian government, and I met with this individual. He was the Deputy Minister of Health, Hong Thiem, and so he facilitated the process of distributing the medication. Cambodian government at that time didn't trust Westerners that much. Totally understandable, the way the West had treated Cambodia, but they trusted me enough to help me out with that process. And they ended up sticking me on state-run TV, doing a press conference with him and Ministry of Health staff as we distributed $100,000 worth of medical supplies that had been donated by hospitals in British Columbia. So that's kind of where it started, and I realized, oh my goodness, people wanted to give me money to help that process. And so a charity was born. I never intended Ratanak to be a charity, but it became so. And that led to us building new clinics and building new hospitals. Those new hospitals, like this one in Poi Phet and another one in Sangkai District in Battambang, had a whole surgical wing and an inpatient wing. And this was the first opportunity to introduce really good health care up into this area. And so it was exciting to go from that little hut and watch the transformation to actually surgical units that could transform lives. So that was really exciting for me. That whole direction of development was to change with Ratanak when I was still a member of the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and so I was tasked with an investigation involving a Canadian pedophile, and he had been assaulting Cambodian children. And so that gets us into sort of the modern era of Ratanak, where our whole focus changed to human trafficking and abuse. And it started with children, horrendous investigations that were heartbreaking to be involved in. But again, I learned that there was something useful for me to do. We could solve those crimes. That particular file ended up being Canada's first conviction for such offenses overseas. And that led into, in turn, many more programs developed for young adults that had been sold into sex slavery and abuse. And so we started to focus on those that were exploited and abused in a country that had had its systems shattered. And so that kind of brings us up to date into the Ratanak you know today.
Well, Brian, there's so much that's gone into how Ratanak got started and where we're at now. I know as a staff we really enjoy hearing Brian's story tell. And so I wondered, Brian, if you could share one memory that stands out to you the most from each decade of Ratanak so far.
There are many, so it's hard to limit, but I'll just give you one from the one from each decade. The one from the 90s is actually not in Cambodia. It was when I was slaving away packaging up medical material, learning how to buy a container, learning how to smuggle a container internationally. There's no courses for that, so I learned the hard way, just how to figure all this out. And when the container was loaded on a ship, I remember one rainy night going down to the Lionsgate Bridge in the harbor in Vancouver, and I knew my container was on this ship somewhere, and I actually stood in the rain on the bridge because I wanted to see it go. And it was just one of those incredible experiences of we're on the road, it's actually happening. The longing of my heart to help Cambodians in the memory of Ratanak was happening. So whether it was going to work or didn't work, I didn't know, but we're on, it's happening, it's go time. And so that's a very, very special memory for me, just standing on the Lionsgate Bridge. For the 2000s decade, my single biggest memory, I think, would be that file I alluded to, the first file of assaulted children. This was our first opportunity to really partner with the Cambodian police, who actually were incredibly open to the investigation things we needed to deal with. And so it was a joy to work with them, surprisingly. People didn't think that would be an easy process, but they bent over backwards. And so we executed warrants with them, we got the evidence, and children were rescued as a result of that investigation and other investigations. But the key thing for me was several years later, without knowing where those young girls from that first file had gone, I discovered they were already in our care in a program we were funding through a partner. And I had the privilege of meeting some of those girls that I had witnessed in horrendous child assault videos, in the evidence videos for that file. And I remember them walking in the room and just kind of going, here they are, and they are well. And my first experience of meeting them, they prayed for me. They had found freedom in the Lord. They were being very well cared for. And so I was privileged to sit with them and see these young girls that I had prayed for years without any expectation of ever meeting them. And there they were, and they prayed for me. Absolutely an outstanding experience for me. And then more recently, in the last decade, one of the biggest thrills for me has been our new building. Finally, Ratanak has our own home, a custom-built building for us to do ministry from that is a blessing to our staff and facilitates our programs. And that in turn has led me to a wonderful experience where just some months ago, for the first time, I witnessed young women arriving at the center out of our minivan, coming from the airport after having been trafficked and abused in China. And to see that homecoming was just extraordinary for me. And again, an answer to the prayers of my heart.
Wow, Brian, those are some really special memories. And I know there's so many more stories. I wish we could tell them all tonight. But on a little bit of a different note, I feel like there's one more story that we should include tonight. It involves a particular fruit, something called a mango.
We have a friend, Rexa. He's a psychologist from Cambodia, and he describes me as suffering from post-traumatic mango disorder. This was a cross-cultural experience I had in Thailand, my very first trip, where I was visiting with a bunch of generals in the Thai armed forces and police, and they served me mango and rice, sticky mango and rice. And I did what my mom trained me to do in Ireland, and that was, when you're presented something, you eat it, you finish your food. So I finished, and as soon as I finished, another bowl arrived. And I figured, I gotta eat another one. So I ate another one. And as soon as I finished, another bowl arrived. And I have no idea how many bowls I went through, but I didn't realize it's polite in Asian culture to leave a little bit in your bowl. But I'm trying to be the Irish guy. So this is my first lesson in cross-cultural, know your culture. And I made myself so sick of mangoes that day that I really almost threw up. And I have not eaten mango since, literally. So this is my anniversary of basically not eating mangoes. It's 30 years since I've had a mango.
Well, that's 30 long years of missing out on one of the best fruits ever.
No.
All right, thanks so much, Brian, for sharing your heart with us and some of your special memories. Up next, we've got Graham, our executive director, and he's going to share a little bit about his experience with Ratanak and how Cambodia has impacted his life. That was a great segment with Brian. We've got Graham here, our executive director. He's been with us for the last 6 years, and he's going to share some stories about his experiences with Ratanak. Hi, Graham.
Hello, good to be here.
Good to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with Ratanak?
Yeah, so unlike Brian, I haven't been around for 30 years. I'm a pastor by trade, and my family and we all moved out from Ontario back in 2009 and became pastor of Coquitlam Presbyterian Church. Just a shout out to CPC. And I hadn't been at the church long when I started hearing about this organization that the church supported called what I thought at the time was Ratanak. They corrected me a few times before I actually got it right, but I found out that they had been supporting this organization called Ratanak that works in Cambodia for many years, and found out that Brian's parents attended there and got to know them quite well. And probably about 6 months into my time at CPC, we had Brian come and speak. And I've grown up around missionaries all my life, but I knew Brian was different the first time I heard him speak, when he's got this, this CSI, AK-47 kind of angle to his missionary talks, and I thought, this is a guy I need to get to know a little bit more. But I had been at the church about 3.5 years, and we just sensed that God was calling us onto something else, but we had no idea what. And through a series of kind of miraculous circumstances, actually, found out about a temporary position at Ratanak because you were going on your first maternity leave. And that's how God unfolded the story. I ended up coming what I thought was temporarily for 14 months, and that was 6.5 years ago.
Wow. Well, we're glad that God led you here to Ratanak. Can you tell us about some of your first memories in Cambodia?
Yeah, so Brian and I actually just got back from Cambodia a few weeks ago, just before COVID really took hold, and that was my 10th trip. But my first trip was in early 2014, and I went with Brian and one other worker from here. And Brian, in his infinite wisdom, decided that April would be the best time of year for me to visit Cambodia for the first time. If you've ever been to that part of the world, you know that April is the hottest month you can ever imagine. So that's probably my first memory, walking off the plane and not having ever experienced humidity like that in my life. But I think one of the most vivid memories for me, one of the first things I think of is not too long after we arrived, we actually went up into the northern part of Cambodia and visited Reksa, him. Some of you might know Reksa, who's a friend of Ratanak and has run a few of our programs over the years, and is also, most importantly, a survivor of the Khmer Rouge era. And we went to visit him, and he actually took Brian and I out to the village that he lived in for the time that the Khmer Rouge was in power. And that was really it was a bizarre experience for me to be there with Reksa in that community where he spent the time, and for him to be reflecting back to that time where most of his family was killed. And for him to recount that, and for him to talk about forgiveness, it was a powerful time. And then for us to be able to visit the school that Reksa wanted to start in his own home village, and for me to meet some of the kids, and it was really my first interaction with Cambodian children. It was a powerful, powerful time. And in that same trip, we were able to go back to the center that Ratanak was supporting and Reksa was operating, and I got to play hockey with Cambodian kids, and I learned that they're incredibly good at hockey. And I was getting very old and not able to survive in that heat. It was a really exciting thing. And then to find out that Reksa is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I mean, how much better could this day get? Whoops, let me just go back here. But it was a really fun time. It really, really was. But I actually want to show you this picture too, just to show you the person in the background, because the other thing that was memorable for me this was my first experience meeting some of the people that Reksa had mentored and this program was mentoring to powerfully impact their own country. And these are some of the workers that were mentoring and discipling the kids in the community. And it was my first real exposure to seeing the passion that Cambodians have to see their country transformed. And so that first trip was really, really memorable for me.
There's lots of good stories in there. Unfortunately, I think you're kind of missing one. A particular story about a birthday. that you celebrated in Cambodia. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, I gave a little bit of a hint of that when I jumped forward, but I think it was maybe my second or third trip to Cambodia. I was there over my birthday. You were there, and so we went out to a restaurant, and the group ordered cupcakes for me from a wonderful place in Cambodia.
So nice.
They were so good, but before they brought the cupcakes, they brought me a deep fried tarantula, which is a delicacy in Cambodia, and I don't know whether they anticipated me eating or not. I don't think you did.
Some hopes.
But yeah, that's probably one of my special memories, and we'll just give you a sense of this.
You can really taste the deep fry. You're bad.
Yum.
Braver man than I am. Look.
Oh.
You sick?
It's the only time I'm ever going to do that. Yeah. We won't show anymore. That's probably enough.
Well done, Graham. Well done.
Thanks.
Okay, back to a more serious topic. As you have been with Ratanak over the last 6 years, what are some of the transformations and developments that you've seen in Ratanak and Cambodia?
Yeah, lots. Really experienced a lot. It's such a short amount of time, 6 years. But there's just been so much that has happened in my time, and even in those 6 years. And I put this picture up just because it's really emblematic of what's happened in Phnom Penh, the capital city. In my 6 years, every time I go, the city looks different. It looks transformed. And even when I was there just a few weeks ago, there's still too many construction cranes on the skyline to actually count. And every time I go, there's a new building that's up in my view. And the amount of infrastructure that's just come up in the last 6 years since I've been going to Cambodia is just amazing. To see the middle class growing, and to see Phnom Penh expanding with the traffic included. It's just been a pretty powerful example of the amount of growth in Cambodia. I think for me, the other thing that has been really powerful is also just seeing over the 6 years, seeing the amount of collaboration when it comes to anti-human trafficking work in the country has really gone deeper, I would say. And that's collaboration between NGOs and particularly between the government and NGOs. And just having had the chance to sit down with the anti-human trafficking wing of the police department, for example, and to hear their 5-year strategy for combating trafficking in the country is really exciting to see. For us to be working with the Ministry of Social Affairs and hearing their strategy and the national strategy for combating human trafficking, that's really, really taken off in my mind in the last 6 years since I was first there, and it's really, really, really exciting to see. In terms of Ratanak in particular, I think for me the biggest change that I have seen is just around our building. We had a vision early on in my time at Ratanak that we just felt like God was calling us to have a home of our own. We had made a shift to focus on human trafficking in particular, and we just really felt like we needed a custom-built facility for that. And so to be in Cambodia and to see, after we purchased the land, to have a team there, and we took time to pray over the land, was a powerful experience. And then I just happened to be there on another trip a few months later, where they were breaking ground for the first time and the foundation was going in, and to actually stand on the land that we had just prayed on a few months before, and then to see it happening, and then to come back a number of months later and to see the finished product and to be there for the opening was a powerful experience for me, one I'm not soon going to forget. But to be there at the opening and to see the staff, and I think that's the real powerful thing for me, is to see the development in the staff over the 6 years that I've been associated with Ratanak, the expertise level, just their passion to see their country transformed, and to be a cohesive team. That the staff team's grown in size, but it's been that's a huge amount of development that I've seen in the last 6 years.
Well, what's the vision that you see for Ratanak moving forward in the years ahead?
Yeah, we get asked that quite a bit. It's a good question. I think it really came clear to me actually in the last trip that we were there. This is just a kind of a normal shot of some of the meetings that go on in the center now. This is just a portion of the staff. We're up to about 40 staff in Cambodia now. But when I was there just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit in on some meetings and had the opportunity to kind of walk down the hall, and some other meetings were happening. And I really started to get a sense of the vision of where we're going to be going in the next number of years. Our theme for the next year is forward together. We feel like God's calling us forward to see amazing things happen and to see human trafficking survivors restored. We want to move forward together. But going between those meetings, can't almost describe it to you. I guess two things. The staff, the expertise of the staff was really, really evident to me. I didn't even understand what was being talked about in some of the meetings because I don't speak Khmer, but I could tell from the little that I was gathering and from the way the meeting was going when, for example, case management workers were talking to one another about particular cases. I want to see that expertise grow even more. Our vision would be that we would see Cambodia or Ratanak become more and more known for psychosocial rehabilitation of human trafficking survivors. And to see the staff team poised for that with their expertise that's growing, it's becoming known. The government's relying more and more heavily on us. That's really exciting to see, and I would just love to see that continue. But also in these meetings, you get a sense of their passion. And I think one of the biggest memories for me from the last trip was sitting in the staff meeting with one of the managers playing the piano and the team worshiping together. And one of the songs, they provided the English translation, but one of the songs, it was powerful to hear them singing. The song was about Christ transforming Cambodia. And that was a really powerful thing for me, to hear them singing in their own language as a prayer. And that's part of that really is the vision going forward, is for us to be positioned as an organization for these talented and dedicated staff to be positioned to transform their own country, to empower them to see their country transformed. It's such an amazing thing. So that's where I'd love to see us going.
That's an exciting thought for the next few years, to be able to see that continue to develop and grow. Thank you, Graham. I think that's a perfect segue into our next segment, where Brian is going to be able to have a call in from Cambodia, from Pasay, our client services manager, and be able to have a heart-to-heart interview with her. Looking forward to it.
Okay, everybody, in this segment, I really wanted to introduce you to one of our Cambodian staff members. Sometimes Cambodia can feel really distant and far away, and part of being in community is getting to know one another. So I really wanted to introduce a staff person to you from Cambodia who can express basically her work with Ratanak, and so you get to know sort of that side of things. So it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Pasay to you. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about who she is first, in terms of just her name, family, and her job description, etc.
My name is Lengchan Pasay. I'm a client service manager. I'm living with my parents, and I'm married, and I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have 6 siblings, and we all were from Phnom Penh, because that's where my parents had settled in after Khmer Rouge in a small wooden home. And we all got married now, and some of my siblings are in different provinces, and some of us are still in Phnom Penh, nearby to our family, so that we can come and go and visit my parents.
Okay, and how long have you worked for Ratanak?
I've been working for Ratanak for 4.5 years now, and it's been quite a journey.
So when you first were sort of going through the application process for Ratanak, what made you apply to Ratanak? Why did you want to work for Ratanak?
To be honest, before I decided to exploring what Ratanak is like, I was already at the edge of or at the crossroad of deciding whether I still interested in engaging in the NGO world, because I've been in the transformative work for the past 6 years before I come to Ratanak, and I was struggling to really decide whether I still wanted to continue with NGO. And at that time, what really caught my heart was the vision mission, especially on the Christ-centered and dignity for Cambodians. And I just felt that it's really connected because back ago I had been engaged in this transformative work, and it was really something missing out. I was spiritually dried, and I really wanted to try out and see what is Ratanak is like, the environment there, and Christ-centered and dignity for Cambodians.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. Just to give us a sort of a context for your work, just very quickly, can you sort of give me a thumbnail sketch as to why are Cambodians vulnerable to human trafficking?
I think anyone can be vulnerable to human trafficking, and there are lots of things that can make people vulnerable to human trafficking, because if we think back to the histories and the level of trauma in the country, especially Cambodia is still underdeveloped. So there are lots of situations from the stories that we've seen in our experience that there are different stories, varies from each case to each case. Some cases, it's due to the crisis situation in the family. Their family member got really sick, and some family got in debt. Some family not even have access to the educations or skill training, and there are family who have the elements of who have broken relationship, and it really complicated. And we see that there's like those brokers who really like a lion who prey on those people who are already stretched and vulnerable to those situations.
Okay, so in terms of your experience working in this area, it's a difficult area. What do you like about working with human trafficking victims? How are you drawn to that? Well, like, why?
I feel like the word like may not feel right for me, because it's really difficult work, and it's really hard work in this transformative work. And what drawn me to this work has been a journey for me. Let me take back a bit. When I was a little girl, there are lots of messages from people that I hear again and again and again, that the situations cannot be better, things gonna be what it is, and things not gonna change. And as a little girl, I remember that I really want to see change, and a lot of my childhood, a lot to do with climbing tree. Something about climbing tree really give me this this sense of this sense of like freedom when I climb on the tree and kind of watch from top of the tree or top of the roof on top of the house, like to just see what's going on. And as I grow up, I engage in that transformative work. I have this desire to see Cambodian being healed from and recovered from their trauma and experiences. But when I come to Ratanak, things have shifted, because I felt like I don't actually try to explore my dream anymore, but I get to live my dream, because my dream, what I'm living my dream right now is that to see Cambodians really share our unique story as Cambodians, and clients are not just victims, but they are one of us, a person, a whole person that deserves dignity.
Wow. So in that that work you do and your heart and your desire for them, what are your memories of individual clients? Sort of what's the most memorable moment when you were working with clients was kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be doing?
Yeah, there are lots of moments and memories, like not just memory, but it's like a joyful moment to celebrate with them. It looks really simple in like practical days, maybe for most of us, but it's something that really important that sometimes we might miss out on our daily work when we really busy response to crisis and things like that. Those moments when clients had been through this experience of locked up over 10 years. And when the person just first came, she was isolated in her own room. And one day she came out and to start talking to other residents. And when there's a moment when a new client just arrived at our transitional homes, and there are our residents that come out and just introduce themselves, show them around the house and make them feel welcome and make them feel more calm, because they were scared, they were confused, and wonder where this place gonna be. And I remember back ago when I came to Ratanak, that was something that I can relate to, because I was already at the age of not wanting to involve in NGO, but I wanted to explore what Ratanak is like. And it's really a joyful to see those moments, and even simple as like clients able to hold knife and cut vegetables and meat again, when she had suffered for all of those time with all of this physical reactivity and really anxious that she cannot even control on holding things. And she get on the bike and make her way to the school, even after she got scared that somebody gonna prey on her when she's on the way to school. Like those moments are really simple, practical, but it's really big and important for them. It's like something to celebrate, because they have faced their darkness and they had come out again.
That's really interesting, because what you're describing for me is the process of learning to be free, and that's very uncommon for Canadians and those of us in the West. We've never been imprisoned or trafficked, so we don't know what that's like. So to actually hear that the process of freedom is a difficult process. You've got to work into it. It's not easy. You don't just wake up and it's like a movie and you're free next day. It's this long process by which you have to relearn life and what freedom is, which is exciting and really what I really want to share so often with Canadian donors. So in terms of your involvement in that, I really want to ask you, where does your hope and joy come from in this process? I mean, this is dark stuff. So what makes you laugh?
For me, what brings me joy through this work is particular moments when a client say, I have never been able to express my anger. And I've been feeling free, able to feel what I feel, able to do the things that I want, able to think about tomorrow, the future that I want for myself, my siblings, and family. And it's huge, because can you imagine of clients who've been betrayed, clients who've been through so much terrible things that a human can do to a human. And it is really dark. It is really, really painful to hear all of those stories. But we are here with them, and it's really something really joyful when they start opening up again after those betrayals, after all of those experiences. But they open up to share their pains, their tears, their hurts, and be here. And the story that remind me that I can really best describe this as, I think of the caterpillar in the cocoon, because we can be a safe place for them, but who's struggling out of that cocoon is the caterpillar. And we just be there, be faithful, and stay there. And they know that we are here. They feel safe. They have the space to really struggle out. And when they come out, they can spread their wing with that colorful wings and spread out. And it's beautiful.
So as you have these experiences and you meet these lives and you work with them and you encourage them and you counsel them, what part of that for you personally is influenced by Christ? I mean, what is important about being a Christian for you in this work?
For me, like I shared earlier ago, that back ago, it was me exploring my dream for my country, for my people, and I really want to do this and do that for them. And it's a lot to do with me wanting to rescue my people, and it's a lot of me trying to journey and explore what I can do for them. But what had been shifted when it comes to Ratanak, I have learned that there's so much that we can do, so much demands, and we cannot do enough. And there are so many times that I feel incompetent. There are so many times that I wanted to give up because this is really difficult. But what that I have learned and grown through my spiritual life with Ratanak and my journey is that Christ's love is enough. His love is captured and free, and his love is enough for us to rest in his love and just be in his love. And he's always here. He's here for us. And we can come to him in that deep darkness, in those broken pieces, because each one of us all have our own unique story to tell. And as we continue to choose courage each day to face those things, to leave those things, leaving our dream. And those are the type of environment that we can provide to our clients that, oh, yes, it is dark. Yes, it is really difficult. And we see your pain, we see your tears, but we are here together in it. And we're going to journey together. And it's really important because this work is beyond our human capacity. There's so many times that I want to quit, but there's lots of things about the love that I see, the commitments in the teams, and they committed their lives and to journey with clients. Because for me, sometimes people say that it's money, but for me, times is life. So I am grateful for being part of Ratanak, that I can spend my life here at Ratanak and invest in the team, and the team invest their life. And because they're the front line who work with clients directly, they hear all of those terrible stories. They journey with our clients each day, and they've been really committed, their heart and soul, and journey with our clients.
So what is your dream over the next couple of years for Ratanak as an organization in terms of our impact? What would you dream about? What would you long to see?
My dream for Ratanak, I'm not sure if for the next 3 years, but it's my dream, and I feel like I'm living it, the team living it, and we living it, is that Cambodians live in dignity, even because given the story, given the histories and the level of trauma in Cambodia, but each day, like what we feel, what we see is that we choose courage each day to face those difficult work. And through hard work together, when we journey alongside of clients, lives change, not just change in clients, but change in one of us who touch that, who in it together. And we see this, this life has been transformed, and we want to see that impact continue when clients discharged from our care, they will go back to their family and they share that experience and impact the community and spread out to the whole country.
Wow. Okay, so I got two final questions for you. One and two. One is what would you like our donors and supporters to be praying for you personally, and what would you want us praying for the human trafficking clients that we have in our care?
First of all, I just wanted to say to our donors that your support, it's much more than financial, and lots of, like, your supports mean more than just that, because those support have been allowing us to be able to live our dreams as Cambodians and to walk alongside our people. And they deserve so much, because they deserve to live in dignity. They deserve so much, and we feel such a privilege to be able to do this. And without your support, we would not be able to do that. And I'm so grateful, because we see so many lives have transformed through our clients and also the staff, and how those difficult work have bond us together with all the commitments that we see. Even during this situation of COVID, what have been really encouraged me to keep going even more and even fall in love with the team is that really simple. When I come to the office, I see one of the staff meeting with our clients with that smile and glimpse in the eyes, and I see the other team was discussing and mapping out the address of clients, how we can deliver different packages to support them. And there are residential teams who have meeting because there's crisis going on and they need to deal with that. And with the situation right now, there are some clients who are having crisis right now with the situation in their family. They feel like they have the burden. So the team right there with the client to support our client through that crisis. And those are the things that I would like our donor to pray for the teams and know that we are so grateful. And it's not just, it's beyond, it means much more than just support, but we living our dream and we serving our people, and we see that lives transform each day. And despite all the difficulties and hardship, we choose courage to continue our work. And for me personally, I would say that to pray for all my amazing supporters, because I cannot make it here without them. So please pray for them as they pray for me, as they support me each day. And I would say I have grown so much in my leadership. I have grown so much as a person. And this hard, not just here, without all of those support, all of those love and space that I have with Ratanak to be here.
Well, thank you. One of the things when I go to Cambodia, I interact with Cambodian staff, and I always find myself longing to share my conversations and my experiences. If only donors in the West and supporters could meet this staff, how rich an experience that is. And my hope today was that in meeting Pisay, you would catch a glimpse of not only Pisay's heart, but the heart of our whole staff, because she's representative of a whole staff that are skilled, that are diligent, that love their country, that love their people and seek to serve them. And it's so exciting to be able to share that with you. It's clear to me, as it's clear to you, that she loves her nation, and what a privilege it is for us to share in that. So thank you, Pisay. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brian.
Blessings on you. Thank you.
Leah.
Well, Brian, what an incredible interview from Pisay. It was really encouraging to hear her heart about the work that's being done in Cambodia. We're so privileged to have an amazing staff team.
We do.
When I think about the last 10 years of serving with Ratanak and loving on Cambodia, there are 4 things that come to mind for me. The first one is a sense of family. We're so blessed to have a great family of staff and volunteers here in Canada, in Cambodia, and in our country offices as well. We've got some really great people that have championed us for a long time. I think of some of our key volunteers, and I don't know where we would be if they hadn't come alongside. Another word that comes to mind is partnership. If you look back over 30 years of Ratanak, and even in the 10 years that I've experienced walking with Ratanak, there's been so many partnerships at play with other NGOs in how programs are delivered, and working with the Cambodian government and building relationships there. We've been really privileged to have strong partnerships all around. And that's enabled us to be able to expand our reach and really impact more lives. The third thing is God surprises. And to unpack that a little bit, I think this is one of my favorite things about working at Ratanak, is that I've been able to have my faith built by seeing how God comes through time and time again. This is all like on the provisional side with our finances. In times where we weren't sure where the money was going to come from, it's always come through what we've needed to be able to serve the people in Cambodia and to do the things that we feel God has called us to do. It's also been in the form of opportunities where we've been given opportunities that I don't think we could have dreamt up or expected to have offered to us. And so I think that is one of my favorite parts, is all the God surprises. And the last thing that comes to mind is the words real lives. I brought a little bracelet with me that I got several years ago from a young woman who had survived terrible abuse, and I knew a little bit of her backstory and had the privilege of meeting her during one of my trips to Cambodia, and a chance to hear her share about her hopes for the future, her hopes for studying and for rebuilding her life. And she gave me this bracelet as a small token of thanks, and it was a pretty simple exchange in some ways, but it stuck with me for years. And I have this bracelet hung up in my rearview mirror of my car, and it comes with me everywhere and back and forth to the office. And it's a reminder to me about how God really can bring transformation to lives that maybe shouldn't, in other people's eyes, be able to be rebuilt and restored, but with God that's possible. And so looking at this bracelet just gives me hope looking forward.
Melissa is an incredible individual that first appeared on my horizons after I left the RCMP and I needed administrative help because I'm not that bright when it comes to administration. And so she jumped in to sort of help put the office together when I had left policing and was trying to struggle to how to put the organization together. And since then she's done virtually all of the jobs at Ratanak on the Canadian side. Just sort of worked her way through that to the point where now she is one of our directors, and it's a joy to have that kind of longevity and that family that you speak about. So Ratanak is a family, and family speaks to the individual. It was started because of one little baby called Ratanak that did not have any opportunity to live, and in her memory, we started something with a desire to see impact and change. And you're talking about the bracelet, and it's an individual. It's so many times it's the individual that impacts, and that can last for years. But we wanted a greater impact, and God has blessed us with a much greater impact. Here's an illustration of just some of the work we've done in Cambodia in 30 years. The different dots represent different categories of programs, and the numbers in the larger green dots are simply a snapshot of human trafficking victims that we're working with now from the different provinces they are. So it's not a total by any means, it's just a snapshot. So there's many lives being transformed, there's lots of work being done by an incredible team that you have supported, many of you, for years and years. And that stability says everything about our commitment to Cambodia, to Cambodia's people, to Cambodia's culture and who they are. We love Cambodia, and that's kind of the bedrock of what we do. In terms of the personal, these stats say a lot about the impact we've had, more impact than I could ever have dreamed of when Ratanak started. But it's the individual, and I'm going to bring you back to this picture. This is a picture of a young woman getting out of a van. There's another one right behind her about to get out of the van. These were the first few minutes of freedom from them after being returned from trafficking and horrendous abuse in China. And what a thrill it was and still is for me to think of those two young women now moving ahead with their lives in freedom and hope because of what you have allowed us to participate in. We participate with Cambodian lives as they rebuild their country, as they build dignity and strength. And Pisay said it well in terms of they choose to be brave. Who could possibly not jump into a circumstance whereby young local Cambodians are choosing to be brave to transform lives? That's what this is about for 30 years. You have blessed us in that. Thank you so much for that. And that's really what this hour has been about, is to try and communicate what's been going on, but also to communicate our thanks to you in that.
It's been a great hour together, and we've got more planned for this month of May. We really hope you guys will tune in and follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram if you're not already. And for those that aren't subscribed, if you'd hop on to ratanak.org/subscribe so that you're getting our emails. We've got special features planned and some more memories to be shared and other opportunities to celebrate and express gratitude for the last 30 years. So we hope you'll join us throughout this month, and thanks again for tuning in. Have a great night.
Thank you. Blessings.